Hi everybody, I'm Daniela, a trainer from Software Training for Students. In this video, we will be going over the basics of Adobe Illustrator. But before we begin, what is Software Training for Students? We are a service on campus that provides free technology training to all UW-Madison students. We offer workshops and one-on-one appointments. If you want more information on our services and the topics we cover, visit sts.doit.wisc.edu. Today, we will be learning about commonly used Adobe Illustrator tools, vector graphics, and print document layouts. Illustrator is considered an industry standard, and it is widely used by graphic designers to create logos, illustrations, web graphics, and artwork for signs, posters, and even packaging. So let's start. I'm going to give a brief overview of the workspace. This is the application bar. In the application bar, you'll see the workspace switcher menu. Depending on your project, you will choose a window layout option that suits your needs. For the rest of this tutorial, we will be using the Essentials workspace. In this part of the interface, you'll see the file in which you are currently working on. This is known as the document window. If you have multiple files open, each file appears as a tab in the document window. We will now go over the Tools panel, which is found on the left-hand side of the screen. To select a tool, we can simply click it. Tools with a triangle in the lower right corner have additional tools hidden beneath them. To display the hidden tools, we click and hold a tool icon. Then, a drop-down menu showing the hidden tools will appear. The control panel displays options for the currently selected tool. These options are generally a small subset of those available in other panels and menus. If you do not have this panel, you can enable it by going to the application bar and selecting Window and then Control. The Properties panel is useful because it adjusts based on what you have selected. This means that whether you're working with text, shapes, or paths, the Properties panel will display the most relevant settings and options. For example, when you select a text box, the panel displays essential character settings like font, size, and spacing. While the control panel at the top offers quick access to some of these settings, the Properties panel gives you everything in one place. There are also two other panels here, the Layers panel and the Libraries panel. Each panel is displayed on a separate tab. To bring a panel to the front, click its tab. We will learn more about them as we go through this tutorial. Now we will start with a short exercise that will help us get a better understanding of things. If you would like to follow along, I strongly suggest you download our files on Canvas. To download the files, we go on Canvas and select the Software Training for Students course. We will then go to Modules and scroll until we find Illustrator 1. Finally, we click on the blue arrow that is found next to the AI file to download it. Once we have Adobe Illustrator open, we will click on Open, and then select the file we just downloaded from Canvas. Finally, we click on Open again. Just like in many Adobe applications, our document is often separated into different components, called layers. This is useful to us as we can edit and modify objects in each layer without affecting items that are found in other layers. Layers also help us stay organized by allowing you to move, hide, and lock layers. Let's explore how to do this using the First Nations map on the artboard. If you do not have this panel, you can open it by going to Window and Layers. Here you'll see all the layers in your project, including the First Nations map and its sublayers. To move a layer, we can simply click and drag it up or down. You can also expand a layer to rearrange individual sublayers, which Illustrator automatically creates whenever you add a new element. These hidden county lines can become visible by clicking on the empty box next to their layer. The eye icon means they are now active. Click it again to hide them. If you want to prevent accidental edits, click the lock icon next to a layer. This will lock the layer, ensuring it stays untouched. Click the lock again to unlock it. To add a new main layer, click the Create New Layer button. Then, drag it to the position where you need it in the hierarchy. I'm going to create a shape. Now, if we click on the arrow, you'll notice how Illustrator automatically creates a sublayer for the shape. This keeps elements grouped under their main layer, making it easier to stay organized. Throughout this exercise, we will work within the Practice layer. To do this, we go to the Layers panel and select the Practice layer, which is the one right here. Before we begin, let's turn on Smart Guides. Smart Guides allow you to align objects on your artboard easily. To enable this feature, go to the Application bar and select View, Smart Guides. Working in Illustrator often involves moving around the workspace in order to focus on different portions of your project. The Zoom tool lets you zoom in or zoom out to increase or decrease the document display size. Another tool that is useful is the Hand tool. We can click on the H key and move around the workspace with this. We will start by creating basic shapes with the Shape tools. In the Tools panel, we will click on the Rectangle tool to select it. I'm gonna pick my color by going to this area over here, and I'm gonna go with cyan. We can also choose our outline by clicking on the box next to it. Here I will choose a yellow color. We can adjust the size of our stroke by increasing it with these arrows over here. Now I'm gonna create my square by clicking and dragging. We are going to maintain the Shift key. This will help us create a perfect square. In order to create a copy, we're going to first select the square with the Selection tool. Then we're going to hold down the Alt or Option key while dragging out. Once we have it over here, we're just going to let go. Now, to increase the size of the square, we're going to just click on the corner and hold Shift again. This will increase the size while maintaining its proportions. I'm going to decrease the size of the stroke. I'm going to go over here again and use the lower arrow button. In this case, we don't want an outline for our circle. So in the Tools panel, we're going to click on the Stroke swatch and then select the small white box with a red slash through it. This means none. This will remove the color of our outline. As for the fill color, I'm going to choose the color pink for my circle. We're going to create the circle from the center out. We will be doing this by holding the Alt or Option key while dragging out. We're going to combine this step with the Shift key, and this will allow us to create a perfect circle from the center out. Now that we have our circle, I'm going to create a copy by holding Alt and dragging out again. I'm going to increase the size by going through the same steps. We're going to hold the Alt or Option key and Shift again. Now that we have completed both circles, we are going to move on to the triangle. The steps for creating a triangle are a bit more complex. Since we don't want a fill color for our triangle, we're going to set this to none and the outline to whatever color you'd like. We're going to go to our Tools panel and select the Polygon tool. If you draw a shape with the Polygon tool, it is likely that you won't have a triangle, but we can change that by adjusting the number of sides of the polygon. So we will drag out our shape, and then we will tap the down arrow key from your keyboard. This will change the number of sides. We will do this until you get a triangle. Before you let go, hold the Shift key to align the base, and then let go of your click. I'm now going to move the triangle so that it fits the template. We can align it by moving the sides like this. While moving the triangle, make sure to click directly on the stroke, because the shape does not have a fill color, so it can become a bit tricky. With the selection tool, we can stretch the top of the triangle upwards and move the sides inwards to match as closely as possible to the template. The second triangle is rotated 90 degrees clockwise. So instead of trying to rotate the triangle exactly to 90 degrees, we can set the rotation to 45-degree increments. So we will create a copy of the triangle by using the Alt key or Option key. And then with the selection tool, we're going to hover over the corner until the cursor becomes a double-sided arrow. Now we're going to hold down the Shift key and rotate the triangle 90 degrees. Now we're going to follow the same steps to move the triangle so that it matches the template. Moving on to the next page, here we're going to transform shapes with anchor points and the direct selection tool. Every shape is composed of points connected by paths. We can change the shape by manipulating these paths. In this section, we will focus on utilizing the direct selection tool to create unique shapes. So first, we will draw a rectangle that matches this outline. Now I'm going to create a copy by using the Alt Option key. Now I'm going to use the direct selection tool, which is found in the upper area of our tools panel. Now I'm going to click once on the top right anchor point to select it, and then we're going to click and drag the anchor point inwards. Moving on to the next section, we're going to create an organic shape. Now we're going to make a copy and use the direct selection tool again. We're going to select the bottom anchor point, and then we're going to click and drag the point downwards. Now we're going to make a copy and use the direct selection tool again. So we're going to select the bottom anchor point with the direct selection tool, and then drag the handles away from the shape until the curvature of the shape matches the template. Now for this shape, we will first select the little circle underneath the anchor point and drag it out this way until it matches the template. We will do the same for the bottom right. In Illustrator, the pen tool is used to draw custom shapes from scratch by laying out a series of curve and corner points connected by paths. We will get more familiar with this tool after we complete these exercises. So before we start drawing, make sure the stroke color is set to a color that you can see easily, and that the fill color is set to none. In the Tools panel, we're going to select the Pen tool. We're going to follow the steps that are over here. So we will first click in the center of point 1 to place our first anchor point. We will click once on point 2 to place another anchor point. This time, a line should appear between points 1 and 2. We will click on the other points to continue drawing the shape. The pen tool creates paths between multiple points, so we won't see a line appear until we place the next point. Once we have done all of them, this will close the shape. You can practice this by trying the second shape without using any of the reference points. For this exercise, we will be creating a curved line with handles. With the pen tool still selected, we're going to click on point 1 and drag upwards towards the red circle, and then we will release. You can also try this out with the second shape using less guides. Now we're going to apply what we learned by drawing a heart. We will use this heart in our mini project. First, make sure that you are still not editing your curve from exercise 2. I suggest you try this on your own. If you're having some trouble, you can always come back to the video. Before I start my heart, I'm going to change the color by going to this part of the Tools panel and selecting on the outline color. I'm going to go with a pinkish color for this. So we're going to click on point 1 to start the shape. Then we're going to click on point 2 and drag upwards to create a set of handles. It will help to hold Shift while dragging the handles. This will restrain their angle to 45-degree increments. Now we're going to click on point 3 and drag slightly to the left. Click on point 4 but do not drag. We want this to be a corner. When clicking on point 5, we will drag the cursor to the left. Click point 6 and drag your cursor downward. Now finally, we will hover over point 7 until you see a small circle appear next to your cursor. This indicates that Illustrator will now close the path. When you see the circle appear, click on point 7. If needed, you can always adjust the shape of the heart by using the Direct Selection tool. We can play with the handles and anchor points to match the dotted line as closely as possible. Now we're going to go over the Shape Builder tool. This tool allows us to combine and delete shapes. We're going to start with the cloud shape. We will first drag and select all of the shapes that are in this area. This is called the rubber band method. Now we're going to go to the Tools panel and click on the Shape Builder tool. Drag over all of the shapes to create a line connecting to all of the pieces. Now we're going to let go of the click and the shapes should be combined into a large cloud. Now for the moon shape, we're going to use the same method of the rubber band. Now while on the Shape Builder tool, we're going to hold the Alt or Option key, dragging a line through the left circle to delete that part of the overlapping shape. This will create a moon shape. Now I'm going to move it around so that it's centered. Now I'm going to leave this shape to you guys. You can practice by creating an upside down V or a tree. I'm going to explain a bit about what Pathfinder is. Just like the Shape Builder tool, Pathfinder allows us to combine and delete shapes. The only difference is that we can choose from a list of preset options. So for this demonstration, I'm going to create a rectangle. Then I'm going to put a circle over it. Now I'm going to use the rubber band method and select both shapes. So this first button unites both shapes, and depending on which one is in front, it selects that color. Now the second button is called minus front, and what this does, it subtracts the shape in front from the shape behind. Then we have intersect. This keeps only the areas where both shapes overlap. And finally, we have exclude. This removes the area where both shapes overlap. Now we will go back to our project. The Type tool is very similar to other programs that utilize text. From the Tools panel, we will select the Type tool. Then we will drag a text box that matches the dotted template. In this case, I will just write hello. Now we can change our text by going to the Properties panel. Here, I'll go to Appearance and change the color of my text. You are able to select different colors by choosing these options. In this case, I will choose the color palette and look for a bluish color. Now I'm going to change the font by clicking on the drop-down menu. Here, you're able to choose from all of these fonts. Now I'm going to choose this one. Then I'm going to increase the size of our text by clicking on the arrows. You can also change the size of your text by typing out a number. Now we're going to learn how to group shapes. Grouping shapes is a useful feature in Illustrator because we can move all of the shapes at once without having to select all of them one by one. We will group the shapes of the eye to help us create the second eye. So we will do this by using the rubber band method. And then we're going to right-click and select Group. In order to create the other eye, we're going to right-click and select Transform, and then Reflect. Now I'm going to put this menu aside so I'm able to see how the eye changes. Make sure you have the Preview option turned on. Now I'm going to reflect over the vertical axis and click Copy. I'm going to move the copy and align it to the other eye. Now, with all of these exercises completed, we should be ready to apply these skills in our next project. Remember to not close this tab as we're going to use the heart we created. I'm going to go over how to use clipping masks, which can help us turn our images into shapes. Raster images are made up of tiny squares called pixels, which determine the image's resolution. These are usually the ones we download from the internet, unlike vector graphics, which Illustrator primarily uses and can be scaled infinitely. Raster images lose quality when enlarged, because they have a fixed number of pixels. When working with raster images, you can use clipping masks to crop them into specific shapes without permanently altering the image. First, we will draw the shape you want the image to be cropped to. This can be any custom shape, even text. Now select both the shape and the image by dragging over them or holding Shift and clicking on each one. Then go to Object, Clipping Mask, and Make. If we need to adjust the image inside the mask, we double-click on it to enter isolation mode, where you can move, scale, or adjust the image without affecting the mask itself. When you're done, simply click outside the shape or press Escape to exit isolation mode. If you ever want to remove the clipping mask, select it, and then go to Object, Clipping Mask, Release, bringing back the full image. To open a new document, we will go to the application bar and click on File. Then we will click on New. Here you will need to adjust your settings according to your project guidelines. Make sure your project name, unit measurement, color mode, and raster effects are consistent with your assignment requirements. For this practice project, we will be naming it Penguin eCard. I will also set the measurements to 800 pixels by 1080 pixels. The raster effects will be 300 points per inch and the orientation will be vertical. And now we should be ready. I'm going to first create a vertical ellipse. I'm going to select the color of my ellipse to a navy blue. And then I will set the outline to none. Now I'm going to align the shape to the center by using these tools over here. This one will align it vertically and the other one will be horizontally. Now we're going to use the Direct Selection tool. We're going to click on the rightmost anchor point of the body. And then we're going to click on the leftmost anchor point. Now that both points are selected, we're going to drag one of the anchor points downwards. We should see both anchor points moving at once. In order to finish the body, we will flatten the top of the shape using the Direct Selection tool once again. We will click and drag the topmost anchor point downwards. The shape should look something similar to this. Now I'm going to recreate the shape for the belly. We're going to use the Selection tool to select the blue body. While holding the Alt or Option key, we're going to click and drag the body to create a copy. You're able to change the color by going to the Tools panel, or you can use this option right here, which is found in the upper panel. Now, while holding Shift, I'm going to downsize the shape. I'm going to position this shape on the lower half of the body. Now we're going to create the beak. We're going to add a beak to the penguin by creating a small horizontal ellipse. We're going to change the fill to a coral color and then position the beak above the belly. Now for the next two body parts, we will be using the Pathfinder tool. First, I'm going to move my artboard to the left. With this, I'm going to have more space to create my shapes. Now I'm going to create the crescent shaped eyes. First, I will create a circle and then create a copy of this. I will also change the color of the shape to better visualize what we're going to cut. The coral circle will be the shape of our eyes, and the blue circle will remove the section that is under it. Then we will select both shapes using the rubber band method. Now I'm going to go to Window and then Pathfinder. From the shape modes, I'm going to select the minus front, and this will help us remove the shape that is found in front. While holding Shift, I'm going to resize the eye. Now I'm going to position the eye on the body and change the fill to white. Once this is done, I'm going to create the other eye by creating a copy. Now, the last body parts we will be using Pathfinder for are the wings. For this, we will create a navy ellipse. Now I'm going to create a rectangle and change the color. This can be whatever color you'd like. It's just so that we can see the different shapes. Now, with both the rectangle and ellipse selected, we're going to click on minus front from the Pathfinder options, and then this will help us create the half ellipse. Now I'm going to move our shape to this side, and then I'm going to resize and rotate the wing to fit the position on the body. For the second wing, we're going to use the selection tool, and we're going to select the first wing and right-click. Then I'm going to go to Transform and Reflect. From the panel, we're going to choose the vertical axis, and then we're going to click on Copy. I'm going to move this new wing to the right side of the body. Now I'm going to draw a circle with the ellipse tool by holding Shift while dragging out. I'm going to select the eyedropper tool again, and then I'm going to click on the beak. This will help me replicate the shade of coral for the feet. Now on the drop-down menu of the shapes, some of you might have the rounded rectangle tool. In my version of Illustrator, I don't have this option, so I'm going to create the rounded rectangle myself, but it's very easy. So we're just going to create a normal rectangle, and then we're going to click on one of these dots. And then it should round out the corners, just like this. Right now, the circle and the rounded rectangle are separate shapes, but we can combine both by using the Shape Builder tool. So we're going to first select both shapes and then click on the Shape Builder tool. We're going to click and hold while dragging a line through all of the pieces. Then we're going to resize the shape and align the foot. I'm going to create the other foot by dragging with the Alt key. Now we're finally going to use the heart we created. So we're going to go on to our other project by clicking on the panel. And then within the pen tool exercise, we're going to find the heart. With the selection tool, we're going to click and hold while dragging the heart to the other tab. Then we're going to release once we see a green plus sign appear. I will resize the heart and add a fill color. Now we're going to add some final touches to our penguin. We will first add a shadow to the beak. I'm going to draw a rectangle to the halfway point of the ellipse, and then I'm going to change the fill to black. In order to have a more shadow-like effect, I'm going to go back to the Properties panel and I'm going to lower the opacity. For my shadow, I will use 15%, but you can adjust the opacity as you'd like. In this case, we're not going to use the rubber band method because it will also select the shapes behind it. So we will have to use a different method. We're going to use the selection tool, and then I'm going to select the gray rectangle and hold Shift while clicking on the beak. Next, I'm going to click on the Shape Builder tool in the Tools panel, and I'm going to hold the Alt Option key and click on the gray area outside of the beak. Now for the rest of the body, we're going to use a very similar process. This shadow will cover half of the penguin. We're going to drag a rectangle to the vertical halfway point of the penguin. Now I'm going to go to the Properties panel again, I'm going to lower the opacity to 15%. In order to get rid of the unnecessary gray area, I'm going to use the rubber band method, and I'm going to select all of the shapes. Then I'm going to click on the Shape Builder tool and hold on the Alt Option key and click on the gray area outside of the penguin. And then our shadow should be done. So right now, all of the parts of our penguin are individual pieces, but we can't group these shapes together. This will make things so much easier, as it will help us easily move the penguin without having to use the rubber band method each time. So first, I'm going to select the penguin by selecting all of these shapes, and then we're going to right-click and select Group. This will make things so much easier. Now that we have completed our penguin, we're going to create a background. To start, I'm going to select the rectangle tool and select a color. Then I will place my cursor at the corner of the document and drag to the opposite corner. You can choose a solid background or a gradient. For my project, I will go with the gradient. The gradient box is found right next to the None box we used earlier. There are three main types of gradients. I will go with the middle one. So you can double click on the solid color swatch in the gradient slider bar to change the color. You can move the gray diamond shapes above the gradient slider, and this can help us adjust the color transitions in the gradient. Our rectangle is currently above the penguin. We can change this by right-clicking on the rectangle and then going to Arrange and Send to Back. Now we are almost done with our e-card. The final part is adding the text. In the Tools panel, we're going to select the Type tool. Now I'm going to drag out a text box and add a message. For my project, I will choose Miss You. Now I'm going to change how my text looks by going to the Properties panel, and I'm going to increase the size and change the font. Now with the text box selected, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and click on the body of the penguin, and this will replicate the shade of blue for the text. Now we are finally done assembling the e-card. We can finish the project by exporting and saving our work. When saving or exporting from Illustrator, it is important to choose file formats and settings that are appropriate for the intended use of your project. In this section, I'm going to first save and then export the e-card. On File, I will scroll down to Export, Export As. I'm going to change the format to JPEG. And then I'm going to click on my desired folder and export. Now you are finally done with the Penguin e-card. I hope this video helped you get a bit more familiar with Adobe Illustrator. If you would like help using Illustrator or any Adobe program going forward, I suggest you come visit us during our office hours at College Library or book a one-on-one appointment through our website.